Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Hello, Shalom Aleichem. Welcome back to today's DAF Hayemi, Bava Kamma DAF Tes. We got up to Ches Amud Beis, 2 lines off the bottom of the Amud. Ve Amar Abaye, here comes another halacha from Abaye. Reuven shemachar sadeh l'Shimon, shaloi b'achrayis. Imagine Reuven sells his field to Shimon and takes no responsibility. You lose it, not my responsibility. Don't come back and complain to me. So even if, my Baal Chayiv, my creditor, etc., will come and repossess that field, will come foreclose your land, I'm not responsible for those scenarios. Now, v'yatzu aleha asikin. Asikin, Rashi says, are oirurin, complainers, meaning individuals who have a claim on this field. Well, your seller owed us money, etc., etc. So what now? Shimon, the buyer, wants to go back on the deal. I didn't have this in mind. I didn't mean to get it, stuck with your creditors. So can he go back on it or not? It depends. If it's prior to Shimon's chazaka on the field, so Rashi learns, Shimon did not really make a kinyan, did not really acquire the field. He didn't take possession. He didn't do chazaka. One form of chazaka is, digging in the field, etc. He didn't do that. Nor did he pray for it. So at this early point, he can say, look, I'm going back on this. So despite the fact that he was willing to buy the field without any guarantees, without any achrayis, but at this early point, he can just go back on it. But once he does chazak and is kind of the field, he can no longer go back on that deal. My time, why? Because Reuven, the seller, tells him, look, you purchased it blindly. You didn't care about achrayis. It's like a mashal chaysa de kitri, a bag full of air, tied up, kitri ties. Basically, you bought a blind piece of, merchandise. Savras v'kiblus, you decided, you agreed to purchase. Now, Taisus in Bava Metzia asks on Rashi, of course, if I haven't yet made a kinyan, of course I can go back on it. Taisus learns that was speaking that he did make a kinyan, but he didn't yet, take a walk around the field. He didn't yet really internalize the field. So until that point, the derech is, the common practice is that the buyer still has, like a 15-day refund. He can still go back on the deal until it's finalized. It's not yet finalized until he takes a walk around it and really gets into it. At what point is it considered a chazaka? Rashi learns he dug, like disha, he dug a bit around the, boundaries. That's a form of chazaka. Once he does that, it's his. Taisus learns he already did actual chazaka. Rather, he didn't yet really confirm the deal because he didn't do dayish. Dayish means like walking around and sort of stepping around the boundaries, taking a walk around the field. It hadn't yet been done. The deal wasn't yet finalized, and therefore, if there are troublemakers on the horizons, I can go back on this deal. But when do we say that after chazaka it's too late? That's because I purchased the field without achrayis. But if there was achrayis added to the deal, which means anything goes wrong, you have to repay. If it's repossessed, if it's foreclosed, the seller has to compensate the buyer. So in this case, even if it's late in the game, after chazaka, so what? You are makabel achrayis. Any trouble, you compensate. So compensate me right now. There's another version of this halacha. Even if those achrayis stipulated, the buyer has no right to go back at this early point. When the rumors are out there that the Baal Chayiv, at this early point, you have no right to lay claim against the seller. Why? Because it's still premature. Because the seller can tell the buyer, look, I know there are rumors that it's going to be repossessed, but did it happen yet? Achvi tirfach. Tirfa is a a star document, which Bezdin affords the bank, like a foreclosure document. You have a right to repossess that field. Show it to me. V'ashalom lach. When that happens, I'll compensate you. Until then, who knows? And therefore, the seller is not responsible at this point. Now, you may recall, back on DAF Zayin, we had a stira between two psukim. One pasuk says, you have to pay the best. Meitav Sodeu Yishal, best, highest quality field. So the nizik, the victim of financial loss, is compensated by the mazik, who damages property. He has to give him the best. Then comes another pasuk and says, well, Yashiv, Kesev, Yashiv, an extra lashon, anything you want. Pay anything, as long as it has value. It can be the most inferior quality merchandise. That's a stira between the two psukim. Which one is it, the best or the worst? We had a teretz that we proposed. Here comes another teretz. And the reason why we waited until now, Rashi explains, because we got into a discussion about Meitav, we ran into Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Kiva. So we sort of, let it play out. But now we go back to that stira. Rav Huna Amar, he comes to answer. And he says, look, they're both true. Oy kesef, oy meitav. You have two options. You broke his window? Okay. Either you pay your meitav, your best property, if you choose to pay with karka. Otherwise, if you pay with cash, that's also fine. You have two options. Kesef, oy meitav. Eisvei, Rav Huna, Rav Nachman. So Rav Nachman asks him a kasha. It's only one of these two options. Property, the best property, or cash. Brisa says, you can give him anything. Yashiv, the pasuk says, Yashiv, anything can be applied for compensation payment. L'rabbis shaveh kesef. Afilu suba, anything has value, even bran. Well, Hachamai Skinner was speaking to Leslie. He doesn't have anything better than that. He doesn't have money. He doesn't have fields. All he has is bran. So that's what he pays. Well, what do you mean, either Leslie? If he has nothing else, pshita, of course. What do you expect him to do? Maldatema, perhaps, I would say. Amrina, we obligate this fellow to go and sell his bran and get some cash and pay the man the nizik. Zil tarach, go burden yourself. Make the effort. Zavin, sell the, cheap merchandise. V'ai sile kesef, and hand the money over to the nizik. Mashmon Achish says no. You give whatever you have. So you meant to give the meitav or the kesef, but if you're stuck, you give anything. Amar Basi, you should know that ksafim harihen karka. Money is treated like land. What's the point of making this equation? Ilay milinian meitav. Did Rav Asi mean to simply address the previous discussion that when the Torah says you pay meitav, it means if you're paying karka, but if you're paying cash, that's also fine. Well, then it's exactly what Rav Huna said. Hainu de Rav Huna. He's just repeating Rav Huna's halacha. It should have said v'chein Rav Asi, not sort of put Rav Asi as a separate, independent halacha. He's just copying Rav Huna. Rather, he's speaking about a totally different halacha. We have two brothers. Two brothers inherited their father's assets in this manner. Reuven took the land, Shimon took the cash. The father's creditor comes and grabs the karka from Reuven as repayment for his loan. So Reuven lost all his Yerusha, and Shimon walked away with the cash. So for fairness' sake, what happens? Shimon has to sort of split the loss. The azal hay v'shakol parga b'ksafim b'adei. So Shimon can't just walk away with the cash. He has to go. Let's say Reuven lost the $100 field, so Shimon has to sort of split it with him because he's equally responsible to repay his father's loan. He has to pay him $50. That's what Rav Asi meant to say. Ksafim hariyam kikarka, that the fellow who took the money is just as responsible to address his father's loan as the fellow who took the karka. Well, pshita, of course. Why would I think otherwise? Hi, bro, I love bro. Reuven is a son, Shimon is not a son. They're both equally responsible. So that's a kasha on this pshat in Rav Asi. Why speak about such an obvious case? Igadami. Actually, there was another version of this kasha that we find it difficult to understand. In fact, why Shimon has to compensate Reuven. It's not his problem. Adrab, just the opposite. Lidach the other way. The Amarle Shimon can turn to Reuven and say, look, you know why I took money? Because I didn't want to get tied up with karka and creditors. Look, the reason why I took the money, look, suppose somebody robs my money. Am I going to come seek compensation from you? And of course not. You're not responsible for my money. And that's why you, for the same reason, you took the karka, because I'm off the hook. The matarfa, let's say somebody grabs the karka from you for father's compensation. I'm not going to pay you anything. Basically, let's do it fair and square. You took the karka with all its privileges. It's not going to get stolen, but you have a responsibility to live up to our father's obligations, if in fact it comes to be. And likewise, I took the kesef, which is something that can be stolen. True, I took the risk, but comes with a fringe benefit. I'm no longer responsible for our father's chayiv. If you lose your karka to the balchayiv, you're not going to come to me. So it's unfair to demand that Shimon contributes to this repayment. Ella, rather, due to both of these kashas, one way or the other, the pshat in Rav Asi seems to be a bit difficult to understand it. Therefore, we're going to sort of shift. When Rav Asi says ksafim is treated like karka, he meant like this: Ella l'shnei achim. We have two brothers. Shechalku. So again, we have two brothers, but this time they split karka. They inherited their father's karka. Reuben took, $50 worth. Shimon took $50 worth. Sorry, Reuben took $1,000. Shimon took $1,000 of karka. Uba balchayv v'notel chalkish echem. Comes the balchayv of the father and grabs $100 worth of Reuben's field. Here we say, certainly Shimon has to contribute. Because look, let's go through both kashas we had before. One kasha was, why should, we thought that only, we thought that he took the karka and he took the kesef. And the halacha was that the person who took the kesef has to compensate the bala karka. We asked the kasha, well, why not? That was one way to ask. The other kasha was, no, that's why he took ksafim, because he doesn't want to be responsible. So it's sort of going away from that pshat. They both took karka. They split a piece of land equally. The Balchav grabbed Reuben's portion. Comes to Rav Asi and he says, look, Shimon does have to compensate Reuben, but he has a choice. He can give him part of his land, or he can just pay him off with kesef. That's a chiddush, that he could sort of pay him off with kesef. Asks the Gemara, okay, that's a nice halacha, but Rav Asi himself had already taught us this halacha elsewhere. Why the repetition? He already taught it to us a different time. The itma we learned. Right, so two brothers split the Yerusha. Comes the Balchav and grabs Reuben's portion. What happens? We have three shittas. Rab Amar, Batla Machlekas. See, Rab holds of Breira, Yesh Breira, which means that we assume that whatever Reuben took from his father's Yerusha was destined for him, was earmarked for him, and Shimon's portion was earmarked for him. And therefore they're both considered Yarshim. And what happens when the father's Balchav comes and makes trouble? They're both equally responsible. Just because Reuben happened to be the one that came forth and gave away his karka doesn't mean that he's fully responsible. Shimon has to share the burden. So the machlekes, meaning the division that they made amongst themselves, is sort of nullified. They redo it now, taking into account the land that they had to transfer to the Balchav. So whatever's left behind, in this case, whatever Shimon has, is redistributed between the brothers. Shmuel says no. When Reuben allowed the Balchav to collect on him, he sort of gave up. He forfeited any Yerusha. He gave up his claim on the other brothers. In this case, his claim on Shimon. And soon we'll explain why. Rav Asi Amar, we're not sure how to deal with this. Is Reuben entitled to compensation from Shimon or not? So therefore, noitel revia b'karka or revia b'mois. He gets 25%. So let's say he lost $100 on the deal. The Balchav took $100 of his karka. So typically you would say he can go back to Shimon for 50, right? because they're meant to share the burden, he only gets a quarter of what he paid, meaning 25%, and 25% he loses. And Shimon has the option of paying whatever that is, the $25 he can pay by way of giving him a piece of land, or Mois, just paying him off with money, which is basically Rav Asi's halacha before, that we say money is equally regarded like karka. So that was the kasha, why the repetition. We'll get to that soon. Before that, let's first understand this, this three-way machlekes. So again, the case was, both Reuben and Shimon split their father's Yerusha. He took half the karka, he took half the karka. Baal Chayv of Reuben, the father, came and collected and repossessed, $100 worth of Reuben's land. What happens now? Rab says, let's redivide. Shimon has to compensate for Reuben's loss. And Shmuel says, no, Reuben loses. And Rav Asi says, let's make a compromise, half and half. Rab Amabata Machlokes, and let's explain. Why did Rab say that we redo the whole division? Because he holds when two brothers inherit and divide their father's inheritance, Ki Yarshim Havu, we assume whatever he gets was meant for him, whatever he got was meant for him, and they're both equally responsible as per their Yershim status to compensate, to address their father's Baal Chayv. So now when Reuben did it, he did it on behalf of all of them. He sort of represented all the brothers. They all have to come back and redivide and distribute whatever's left behind. Shmuel Amar Viter. Shmuel says Reuben lost out. Why? Because he holds when brothers divide, lekuches. And Farshim explain that Shmuel holds ein berera. We can't just assume that whatever you got was meant for you. Whatever, it's a big unknown. We don't know what's yours, so they sort of divide amongst each other. It's sort of like a transaction. I take something which was meant for you, in exchange I give you something which was meant for me. So basically, it's like a sale. So when brothers divide Yerusha, it's like they're buying and selling from each other. Here's the punchline. There's no achrayis. Nobody undertook responsibility. Nobody guaranteed this so-called sale. So it's basically at your own risk. And if Reuben lost part of his karka, it's his loss. Therefore, Shimon doesn't have to compensate. Rav Asi is not sure. And therefore he says, look, you know what? Instead of taking back $50 from Shimon, $25. Rav Asi, he takes only 25% of his payout, either with karka, Revi'ah b'mois, or money, because he's not sure how to treat this whole Yerusha situation. Masapkali, ki Yershim dam, is like Rav, they're Yershim, so he's entitled to 50% of what he spent. Ikalukuchas damu, is it considered like a buyer, in which case he totally loses because he didn't take achrayas on the deal. Hilkach, therefore we give him only 25%, so meaning Reuben paid out 100. Really, he should be entitled to $50 back from Shimon, but he only gets $25. Hilkach neto Revi'ah b'karka Revi'ah b'mois. And the chiddush is that Shimon can pay him off by karka or using mois, which is sort of in lieu of karka, which is exactly Rav Asi's earlier statement that you can pay with karka or mois. So why the repetition? Ella, says the Gemara, "Mai harein karka." So it must be that when Rav Asi made that statement, money is like karka, he meant liner meitav. A mazik pays meitav. Well, you can pay off either best of your karka or money. So it's exactly what Rav Huna told us. Let's revise the Gemara. Rasi is just concurring with Rav Huna's halach. When it comes to spending money for fulfillment of a mitzvah, you're obligated up to a third. What does that mean? My shlish. Beisai means a third of all your assets. So that means if he has 3 mitzvahs to do, he's broke. You mean to say if he encounters 3 mitzvahs which are costly, he'll pay all his assets, he'll be depleted of all his belongings? It's inconceivable that a Torah obligated a person to such an extent. El Rav Zera means like this: mitzvah. How much is a person meant to add? How much more is a person meant to spend to enhance a mitzvah fulfillment? The answer is up to a third of the actual mitzvah cost. So I mean like this. A typical esrog goes for $100, let's say. If you want to be mahader, get a real nice esrog, you add a third. But Rav Ashi, what does that mean, a third? Shlish min legav, a third from within. So let's say it was going for 100, so you add $33 for a total of 133. Shlish min levar, or When we say a third, it means of the total amount. So instead of 100, you add 50, and that 50 is a third of the total amount. So it's much more. Take it, we're not sure. B'ma'rava Amri, in Eretz Yisrael, they quoted Mishmei de Rav Zera, Ashlish Mishaloi. There's no limit really. Up to that, extra third that you pay for Hidur Mitzvah, Mishaloi. That's sort of, you're paying from what was destined to you, the money which was meant for you. Meaning, you don't get schar for that in this world. You get it in Elam Haba. Mikan ve'elach mishal Kadosh Baruch Hu. So until a third, it's your money spent. But going past a third, if you enhance the mitzvah even more, it's direct deposit from Hashem. Hashem will repay you in this world as well, says the Mishnah. Kol shechavti b'shmirasai. Anytime that I'm obligated, to guard a potential harm doer, like my animal, if I neglect to watch over it, I enable the damage to take place. I'm responsible. Suppose I enabled only part of that nezek, I'm fully responsible for the entire damage, as if I enabled the entire thing. Let me explain exactly what this means. Upon damaging which properties, which assets am I chayiv to pay? Only things which don't belong to a hegdish, which has the halach of milah. It's only something which belongs to a common citizen. But if I'm mazik hegdish, I'm potter. Likewise, has to belong to a yid. Nechasim sheim shel bnei bris, as opposed to nechasim of a guy. Nechasim hamichad, only assets which are owned by a person, as opposed to hefker. Ubechal makom, in any way the damage takes place, I'm chayiv, except chutz mirshus, except for a place which is hamiyuchedes lamazik, which is meant for me only. Your animal walks into my backyard and gets harmed. I'm not responsible. Or urshus hanizik v'hamazik, or a place where the perpetrator and the victim have a right to, use. So that place carries no responsibilities. So in any case where I'm meant to watch and guard and I neglect to do so, the mazik, the enabler, the one who did the damage, has to pay up l'shalom tashlumei nezek v'meita ba'aretz from the best of my assets. Whenever I'm obligated to watch over my harm doer, my animal, whatever, if I neglect to do so, I am considered an enabler of that damage. Ketzah, for instance. Shoir ubar. Okay, we have an ox, or we have a pit, an open pit. Shemasara and the cheresh shoyte b'katan. I was irresponsible. I handed these things over to an irresponsible person, a cheresh, deaf mute, shoyte, deranged, or a katan, viziku. And now this shoir or the bar caused damage. Chayav l'sham, I have to pay. Masheken beish, as opposed to a fire which is dealt with differently, I'm potter, even if I handed it over to an irresponsible person. How could that be? But my skin, what exactly happened? So we spoke about an animal, a bar, and aish. Are they dormant or are they active? Which state are they in? We're speaking about a shar which is totally tied up, harmless, or a bar which is totally covered. And these were sort of relegated to the cheresh shoyte b'katan, right? The kavasoga b'eish. What's a comparable case by the fire? Which is the case the Brisa speaks about. Gachelas, we're speaking of something dormant, relatively benign, a coal as opposed to a burning flame. Okay, so that's the case in the Brisa. The shur, the bar, the aish were sort of dormant. So why the difference between the two? Between these two categories? Ma'ishna be'aish, ma'ishna hacha, or ma'ishna hacha. So why do we treat the shur and bar differently than the aish? By the shur and bar, we say, well, I gave it to the cheresh I'm chayiv, but the aish I'm not. What's the difference? They're both dormant, they're both benign, right? Elo, so it must be b'shur mutter, bar megul. We're speaking about harmful things. A shur which is off his leash, a shur which is sort of, loose, and a bar, so an untied shur, a bar which is megula, exposed. And these sort of present as potential hazards. The kavasoga be'esh. In similar fashion, when we speak about a fire, shaleves, a burning flame. And what does the Brisa say? By the shur and the bar, I'm chayiv. Mashenka be'esh, the potter, as opposed by the fire, I'm potter. Why? For Amr Shlokish. Shmei the Chizkich. Shlokish quotes Chizkiah. Lo Yishana, when do we say that if you send the fire with a cherish, a shayt v'katan potter, elishamas like a chelas. It's only when I gave him a flame, a coal, which was not yet something that causes harm. But Libandi, shayt the cotton decided to blow it up and to get it fired up. So it's his doing. I'm potter. Aval shal heves chay. But if suddenly I gave him a flame, a fire, an open hazard, of course I'm chayiv. My time of why? The habari hazaika, because it's clearly a potential hazard. So back to the brisa, why do we differentiate? Why do we say by the masar eish to the shayt v'kat nam pot? So the Gemara, you're right. Lo'ilam b'shoyer kosher bar mechusa. We're speaking that these things are sort of relatively benign. Shayr is sort of locked up. The bar is covered. Likewise, in the case of the fire, it's a dormant coal. Look, Amos, regarding your question, what's the difference between these three? Ma'yish na'acha. Why do we say by the shayr and the bar handed to the cherish am chayev? Or ma'yish na'acha. Why by the eish am I pot? The answer is like this: shayr. When I give him a shayr, I put the shayr under his watch, I should have known better. It's a living being. It's a lebedik animal. The darkelin tuke. It's very common for an animal to sort of break loose of his moorings. I should have known better than give it to a cher or shayt v'katan to watch. Likewise by the bar. Sure, it's covered today, but tomorrow the lid might fall off. Darkelin turi, the lid could drop. Some potter, some chayiv, as opposed to the gacheles. There, Kamma the shavak lama amya ami v'azla. The longer the gacheles sticks around, it sort of weakens and weakens until it dies out. So I was hoping for the best. I was hoping that by the time the shayt v'katan gets around to doing trouble, the gacheles is already extinguished. So I'm less chayiv, and the brisa says I'm potter. But according to Rabbi Yochanan's version, when the brisa says that by handing a cherish shayt v'katan a eish, it's even speaking about an open fire. The gavasacha. So likewise, in the case of the v'shayr mutar b'megul, in the case of the shayr and the bar, we're speaking about open, unprotected obstacles. The shayr, which is unmoored, the bar, which is exposed, right? We're assuming all three cases are of similar nature, right? So what's the difference then? Ma'yish na'acha. Why by the shayr and bar, despite the fact that they present a danger, I'm potter? Ma'yish na'acha, by the fire, I'm chayiv. Just the opposite. Sorry. Why by the shayr and the bar am I chayiv, and by the eish I'm potter? So as the Gemara, there's still a difference. You know why? Hasam tzavsa the cherish kagorim. By the shayr, by the fire. Hasam by the fire. Even though I gave him a real fire, but ultimately it's the cherish's company. It's like sort of his association with the fire, the fact that he took it and he went and he burned, that's what caused damage. Rashi has two pshatim in tzafsa. Either tzafsa is like a pliers, meaning holding on, the grip of the cherish or the shayt of the cotton. That's what caused damage. His contribution. He applied the fire and burnt something down. Another gira says tzafsa with a vav. His company. His accompanying the fire is what sort of spread the fire and caused it to burn things. So I'm pot. It's not my doing, it's his doing. As opposed to by the shayr and by the bar, it's my thing. Ultimately, it was my animal that caused damage. It's my pit that presented that obstacle. Sure, I gave it to the cherish to watch, but it's not worth much. So the actual damage was brought about by my doing directly. Hacha, so the cherish kagarm. It's not the cherish's association, right? It's not his involvement that brought about the hezek, and therefore the owner is chayiv. Okay, we'll continue Bez Hashem tomorrow. Let's just recap today's daf. So a fellow purchased a field without achrayas, and then there's trouble brewing. At what point can it be chayzer? We discussed that. We have Rav Huna who says whenever we have a mazik, he can either pay meitav or kesef. Kesef is just as good. When it comes to hidur mitzvah, ad shalish, past that is directly compensated from Hashem in this world. Person enables a nezik is chayiv. We discussed the chiluk between putting the cherish shayt v'katan in charge of a shayr or bar, where you're chayiv, as opposed to an eish, where you're potter. We had two pshatim, one based on Rabbi Yehuda, one based on Rish Lakish. All the best to you and much, much hatzlacha.